We're going to dive in with one of the world's global image masters, Carla Mathis and Erin Mathis, to really discuss and understand whether there is this interesting psychological calling when it comes to our industry. So the first question is, what drew you to this world in the first place? Or was there some sort of pivotal moment that made you realize it was your calling?
Well, first, I was 20 years old teaching English in high school, and my mentor teacher was so beautiful and lovely, but she wasn't really, but she always looked perfect. And she noticed that I enjoyed clothes. So she asked if I would like to have a consultation with Suzanne Cagill, who was a color expert. And I went, oh, of course. But I can't afford it because I'm putting my husband through grad school. She went, never mind. I will pay for you to go. But if it's valuable to you, then you pay it forward and give it to someone else. And I went, oh, okay. So I went to this session with Suzanne Cagill with 10 other people in a room. And she was this grand dame who just came into the room and filled it up with her presence. And I felt when she did my consultation as though I had been seen. She understood who I was. There was something in my little heart that went, yes, that's right. So I was so enthralled with this. I took every one of her classes. I worked for her for no pay so I could pay it forward and have all my friends and my family and everyone I knew to have this amazing consultation to be seen. I want to help people. I know I can do this. And if I can do this, other people can do this. So that became my mission.
So you definitely paid it forward.
I
That
paid
we
it
know.
forward.
I
Paid it forward.
want to go back to that moment, that first moment. You're in the room and
No,
she did a group consultation. So she had all these people in a room and she'd just go around and
yeah, she would call. It was a theater thing. She would call each person up, and that person would sit with her and just listen in rapt attention.
almost like
she-
Tony Robbins style.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. Okay.
oh,
This
yes.
is fascinating.
Oh, and she would pull pieces of fabric from her little trays and put it on there. And she would say, "You are spring, darling." To me, she said,
So she made a pronouncement.
"Oh,
And she
absolutely."
labeled, and what did she
Mm.
tell you? She said,
She said, "Well, my dear, you're like a ballerina winter." And I went, inside, I went, "Oh, yes, that's who I've always wanted to be." And what in reality, what's amazing is that as a child in the little farmhouse where I grew up, that the living room was and dining room was it with a kitchen at the end of it. I would put on the phonograph of Swan Lake and feel like I was a ballerina dancing across that little living room every day.
so she saw you. She
She
was a bit
saw
of a
me.
psychic. She was an intuitive. She could read.
Right. So
Pretty
she,
deep profound.
Right. Can I ask Carla to that point, and I'm sure you'll go into more detail later, but was she, because there's a nuance here, was she telling you who you were, or was she seeing who you were and just reflecting it back to you?
no, Suzanne did her whole work and life like the oracle. She would pronounce who you were, and there would be no questions. And so that was something
Right.
that I loved her for who she was. And I, at the same time, went, this doesn't, this is not the way.
Bit too prescriptive.
No, so over time, when I started doing the work myself in 1981, I felt that I had to proclaim. I had to know. But
Mm.
over time, I've realized I don't really have to know. It's not proclaiming as much as pulling out from each client who they have forgotten who they were designed to be. So it's asking the questions. It's uh, digging deeper to find that real kernel inside the soul.
So I want to go back to that moment that you mentioned when you had your colors done, when you sat with Suzanne and you said this moment of feeling seen. That moment to me is interesting because what I've observed when I experienced training with you ladies, and as a reminder, I wasn't training to become an image professional, but it was to bring back those technical elements that you talked about in your book, The Triumph of Individual Style, and then help the brand I was working for, their staff, to be a little bit more empowered when it comes to
Right.
line, contrast, color, balance. So but I, even in that moment in that training, when you get your own colors done and we work with palettes and we spend so many hours drilling down into who we are, in that moment, I too felt seen. I felt very connected to you. And it was that connection, that moment. But I'll tell you what, I needed to feel seen. Now, whether I knew it or not, the subconscious part of me needed to feel
Mhm.
welcome, like I belonged,
Mhm.
because I'd felt on the outer for a long time. I didn't realize that in doing your program that that would be the solution, but it really makes me feel like a lot of image consultants, or dare I say nearly all, are drawn to this profession because they themselves experience this sort of transcending moment of suddenly going, oh my gosh. And I don't know, it's hard to articulate, which is why we'll try and put words, we'll try and
Right.
explain it today on the show. But what is that moment that happens and why do you think it's almost like a catharsis or a therapy to work with a stylist or do the training and then want to be a healer of sorts moving forward?
You're right on. It is a healing profession, this personal styling, because it is when you can get to that small kernel inside that child within says, yes, that's it. That's who I am. Yeah. Then you work from there. Sometimes it takes a long time, maybe a couple of sessions, maybe just 3 hours or 2 hours. Sometimes it's almost immediate. Um, when someone has that feeling of being recognized, it's so exciting to express oneself, but it's also a whole learning curve of how to put your looks together so they express who you are. Um, that's not always easy. So, stylists
Carla, did you feel when you got to Suzanne as how old were you when you had your collars done?
20.
Did you say 20? If you don't mind sharing, with a few small, close personal friends, did you struggle with your sense of self-worth or your image, like your, I'm not to, let's not
Yes.
reuse the word image. Did you feel ugly? Did you feel
Yes.
awkward? Talk to me about
Yes.
that.
Well, I grew up with a brother who did not know how to be a safe big brother for me. So he was always saying I had buck teeth, I had frizzy hair, I was skinny, had a pea head. Um, there was nothing pretty about me. And, he would go this every time and I didn't, I was in a family situation that they didn't understand. And he wasn't really horribly mean. He was just emotionally mean. And I went through high school and I was very smart. So I got good grades. Um, I didn't have any boyfriends because I wasn't cute. I didn't think. And when my first year in university, my now husband saw me. He was a junior, and he was the first boy who thought I was cute. So I married him, that kind of thing. So, um,
You did.
Well, you're still together,
Yeah.
aren't
yeah,
you?
we
So
are
how many years?
64 years we've been married.
Yeah. And I,
Wow. Well, I mean, the next episode will be how not to murder your husband after 64
how not
years.
to
That's a
murder
Yes,
him.
I
miracle.
know. It is a
I
miracle.
That's a miracle.
Yeah, we're kind of on the third relationship without a divorce.
Mm.
You have to keep
Oh, wow.
renegotiating kind of who you are as you grow
The terms.
and become
Yes.
more of who you were meant to be. So he had the grace to let me just be. And that's an amazing. That's amazing. Kudos to him.
But so he saw you and so I'm assuming that up until that point, as we know, we're women, well, we're human beings being made to feel less than or ugly or on the outer, everyone else is normal or with normal features or what have you, and whether it's a brother or a friend or a parent, being told you aren't is bloody
Yeah.
debilitating. So it's interesting to then I can imagine then when you had someone sit you down and say you're a beautiful winter ballerina, that must have
Wow.
been like the most
I went, wow,
tender,
it
beautiful
was.
moment.
And the other part of this, in going through the classes with Suzanne, which I feel just having your colors done an initial style consultation is just the beginning. There's a whole process of going through of learning what that means. How do you put that together in clothes? And this is what you've done so beautifully, Erin. So I took classes from Suzanne. And in one of the classes, she said that I was sort of delightful and delicate. Well, I grew up on a farm and I was very competitive, and there were only boys with whom to play. And I was, by golly, I was tough. I was brawny. I could ride bareback horse. I could shovel manure. I could do anything. And to hear her say I was delicate, I thought that was so ridiculous. So I went home and I said, you'll never know what Suzanne said. She told me I was delicate. And Bob looked at me and he went, well, look at your wrist, this tiny little wrist. Of course you are. And I went,
Look at your
look at my
features.
features. I've got this teeny tiny little head. And
And it's not just, and isn't that interesting, Carla? Because this is why I love this industry so much. It's not a judgment. It's like a scientific observation. You have delicate bones, and then that is going to naturally require you to consider the patterns and the sizing and the contrast of things you wear. So all of a sudden, you have someone seeing you and saying, it's not about whether you are good or
no,
bad, pretty or
no,
ugly. It is simply a matter of line, contrast, directions. It's almost like
it's a science.
they take out the it's a science, and they take out the personal to apply the science. And ironically, that somehow makes you feel better about
It's
the personal.
also relanguaging what has been said about you. Your brother said you
Right.
had a pea head. Well, another way is that you're delicate, okay?
Yeah.
Being small. So it's
Yeah.
the language of affirmation and learning how to speak about ourselves and our bodies in a way that is affirming
I know.
and not tearing
I know.
down.
Affirming is a very interesting word because, again, the affirming doesn't imply judgment
Yeah.
of any kind. It's not
No.
saying you're great or you're this or that. It's simply saying you are, full
Yes.
stop. You are you, full stop. And that moment of elation that you feel that somehow is this salve or balm for years of being made to feel terrible, kind of seems to then ignite this feeling of, oh my God, everyone needs to find
I
out
know.
about this. It's like
I
you've
know.
suddenly discovered a secret. That's how I felt when I came back from your course. I was like, guys, Everyone needs to know this. We're not, I said to my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, I said, Sophie, the world is about to change, my friend. I said, every problem can be solved if you understand your colors, your body
Right,
shade, your
right.
features,
That's right.
balance and harmony. It is no longer ever about, am I thin enough?
Yeah.
Am I pretty enough? Am
Yeah.
I young enough? Am I cool enough?
No,
It's
no,
irrelevant.
It's just about understanding who you are and creating balance and visual harmony and
right.
authenticity in how you express that. And I want to speak to,
Mm,
I mean, we're talking about these oracles, right? Being able to look at somebody and
yeah,
see them. And that's very lofty for a lot of people to think
yeah,
about it. So I'm just going to bring it down to the pragmatic, everyday
Yeah.
stylist
Yeah.
who's like, well, I don't know if I can, read somebody.
See into
Maybe
the
you
future.
can, maybe you
Yeah.
have that psychic, intuitive.
I,
But I want to
mm-mm,
speak to this thing about the desire to be seen and understood. So many
Yeah.
people feel invisible.
mm,
And I too had a time in my life where I felt really invisible in my younger years, like 13, 14, 12, 13, 14. And I felt unseen, unremarkable. And I just didn't know how to put myself together in a way that projected any kind of confidence or uh, much style. And it was after I sort of began to pick up some style clues and give myself change the way I dress, grow out my hair, change some things about how I appeared, that I then showed up in the world in a new way. And I suddenly was noticed. Like when I showed up between middle school and high school, and I showed up to high school as kind of this like glow, I had this big glow up. Um, Everybody responded to me differently. I felt seen, I felt more confident. So really, so many people, women and men, want to be seen and recognized and acknowledged and be relevant. And so, just as that style transformation actually changed my life, it changed the course and the direction of my life. And I thought,
mm,
wow, this is really powerful. Like this
Right.
really impacted me.
Mm.
It could impact other people. So that was my big aha moment of being seen after giving myself a style makeover, using the tools that I had at the time and having the desire to give back, to pay it forward.
But I would argue that, interestingly, your glow up was the means with which you were able to change how you felt about yourself. When people then saw you after the glow up, yes, of course, they might notice, like, that's a cute dress. But I would wager that what they're noticing is the confidence that
inside.
you are exuding now as a result of the clothing. So the clothing, again, it's not all of a sudden, if I'm wearing cool clothing and the right lipstick, that everything's going to be fine. You were the same person the day before the
Yeah.
glow up and the day after. It's just that you suddenly believed in yourself more. And as soon as you do that, there is this subconscious
There's a
kind of
shift.
awareness
There's
where other people,
I
there's a
felt pretty.
shift.
I
And
felt
that's
more confident. I didn't have a
unbelievable.
bunch of money to spend. I was not a wealthy. We're not a wealthy family. So, but it was just knowing how to put some things together and my hair and my makeup and the way and I suddenly had this new confidence. I tried out for the cheerleading team and got it.
But here's the thing, Erin, you figured out a way to do it yourself with style tips. Most women don't. I didn't at all. I
Mm.
needed guidance. I needed help. I needed someone's idea of what I could become with my visual. Not everyone is going to be able to do what you did.
I'm visual. My mom's glamorous, so I had some things working for me.
And both of you have an eye that's been developed over time in terms of being able to see multi-layered color, line, direction. But what I think is really fascinating is, most of us see a therapist or have seen a therapist. We're all, I guess, working
Or
through our
need to
own
see a therapist.
or need to see a therapist. Exactly. We've all got our baggage, our experiences, and one of the other benefits I found was just the feeling that you get when you find the right person to work for. Now, so for me, my experience was working, Carla, with you, and Erin was helping me with my gastro at the time. During the course.
Well,
Don't eat
the
Mexican from the
the
side of the
street
street before a
taco the
5-day
street taco did
course.
not agree with
Yeah.
your tummy.
And so I ruined the course for everyone, but that's another story. But the feeling I got from you, Carla, is this feeling of belonging and safety. And then when I felt safe, I could then start revealing things about myself to then help you work
That's
with me
correct.
to to pull that out. But it's a fascinating connection. The people that join this industry needed to be seen, needed to feel safe and heard. And I think it is amazing that rather than keep that secret knowledge to themselves, everyone's like, oh, this is actually
Yeah.
transformative in ways that we find hard to articulate. So I want to help others. I do want to pay it forward. And what an amazing industry to be
Yeah.
in.
I have worked with clients for how many? 40 some, I don't know, however many years. And um, they can be in therapy for maybe 5, 10 years. Yes, they can understand why they're in there wherever they are emotionally,
Mhm.
but they don't heal. And with this work
Mm.
that we do, which is helping a client or a person remember who she or he has forgotten that he was designed to be, and that little child within knows, when you get
Mm.
in touch with that little child and help that little child come out to the surface in the adult child, then
Mm.
healing starts. And then they don't need as much therapy because they start the healing process.
So when Suzanne said to you, "You're a winter ballerina," you may not remember, but did you feel pretty or attractive or accepted for the first time? Like, was there a connection there with someone for the first time affirming your external look versus tearing it down?
Well, this is interesting. I hadn't thought of it this way until right this minute. But I inwardly knew I was special and I was beautiful, and just the world didn't know that. But I knew that someday I would be a princess. It was interesting. And I went to my session with a beautiful red, soft red double knit dress chemise with a huge shawl collar that was absolutely perfect for me with 4-inch black pumps. I knew I was beautiful, but she said it on the outside. So I went, oh, someone else knows I'm beautiful. Now it's interesting. Most clients don't have that inside knowing.
That's why they've found themselves with you in the first place, is because
Right.
we say, please somebody help see
Right.
me.
Right. Yeah, it's so not
Mm.
about clothes, and yet it is about clothes. But it's not about clothes. It's about who you are.
It,
And then we have to get to the clothes. What do we do about that?
yeah.
So the world knows who you are.
So it's almost like the term personal styling or image consulting is not aptly describing what people are buying. And from a marketing perspective, this is something that I focus on. When you're selling a product like a
Right.
toothpaste, it's a product, you know you need it, you know what it is, you're very familiar with it. And at the end, the result is that, you have clean teeth, that you don't have
Right.
cavities. But personal styling can be so quickly misunderstood as a frivolous, nice to have kind of, oh, we're just going to find you a dress to wear. Honest, it really is. It's another
It
version of
is.
therapy. It is a therapy through the medium of clothing and color. But what you're paying for, in my opinion, is a complete mindset
Mhm.
shift and a reawakening of your confidence. When you have that, you can then achieve
That's
anything.
right. And each little child knows. And then life happens and they get redirected or they forget or they're told who they are. And because there's no one else to say, no, 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 that's not you at all.
Yeah.
They believe it.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
a matter of getting back to that little one that does know.
So that's actually something that I hadn't discussed chatting about, but it seems pertinent to mention. In Australia, there is a really alarming rise in mental health issues with teenagers and suicide. And young girls continue through the advent of social media to judge themselves so harshly, and then are also opened up to kind of abuse and bullying. But I can't understand why this is not almost like a curriculum that young teens are exposed to immediately understand that the few influences they see online are not the defining archetypes of beauty. If you all learn about color, design, texture, and everything, it would empower all these teenagers and hopefully stop them from
I know.
comparing themselves
I
to
know.
each other. Do you
Agreed.
agree?
One of my lifetime goals, that's why I have to live ever so much longer, um, is to
For all
be,
our sakes, Carla.
I want at least 30 more years. I I want to have a university course on design therapy that we then take this work into preschool and then first grade and second, all through school. It's a self awareness
Yeah.
to understand the unique individualism within the larger society. So,
Yeah, it's about how each of us is designed individually and every body type is beautiful and whatever size your
Yeah.
nose, it's beautiful. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of honoring the unique individual and just learning how to create harmony and balance with that in the way you get dressed.
right.
And so I want to say
Beautiful.
that, some of the personal stylists we've trained personal stylists around the world throughout the years. Some of them have gone on to do that.
Mhm.
Actually, they have created programs for young girls,
For
especially. I
teenagers.
mean, young girls especially fall under the expectations of our society and what's pretty. Let's start early teaching women and girls to honor how they are created, to speak in affirming language about their bodies. Oh, look at how full and curvy you are. That's wonderful. Or, your lines are really straight and narrow, thin and beautifully delicate. So there's all these different ways of speaking that language of affirmation and then learning to say, oh, okay, well, if your lines are very straight, then you're probably going to look best wearing firmer fabrics and these types of styles. Once you understand that, it then becomes an affirmation of just accepting yourself.
It's a form of an art class, the art of dress.
I agree. I agree. And in fact, the probably the most helpful academic component is within the book, The Triumph of Individual Style, your use of artistic body shapes like Renaissance painting,
Yeah, the
sculptures to
skeletal,
just
the
make you say, hey,
molded, the
yeah, skeletal, molded, a combination. These are
muscular. Yeah,
terms that are coined, and then how they correlate to fabric texture. It was so clever in that there was not one element
No,
of judgment in any picture,
no,
any language, in anything. It was just simply, this is what is. So how do we then create harmony and balance and
right.
proportion and just play with
Yeah.
what we have?
But also, it's who are you? What is your body saying about what it needs? Where do you live? What type of clothing do you need for your lifestyle, for your purpose, for your goals? So there are many layers. So it's a whole process.
Yes. But again, the reason for that process is not so you have a great closet full of clothes. It's because when you have this magical alchemy of your design, your body's physical design, the pairing of fabrics and textures and cuts and colors that harmonize and complement that with who you are, what you like,
Right.
what makes you happy, that all combines to deliver this a completely different outlook on life
Does.
and confidence. And that's the juice that you need to be a better person, a better mum, a happier person. Something that I'm passionate about is people understanding what the true nature of this business
Yeah.
is, what the true benefit is. It's difficult because we're communicating a therapeutic job, but we're potentially stuck in marketing it through a very
Right.
visual, superficial means.
Right.
You can't do like a before and after of someone's psychological headspace. She was crazy before, now she's happy. Like, that's not going to help you sell your service.
But actually,
I mean, right.
I have worked with some really emotionally damaged people. It just takes longer, but they can emerge
Yes.
into being healthy people emotionally.
Do you have an experience you can remember where you were working with a client and it was mirroring your own experiences, or in some way you were like, oh, this feels familiar to me?
I had a story and thinking about client experiences who mirrored yours of
Okay.
being seen and accepted. There was a woman that I worked with who was newly divorced and she had 4 kids and she was trying to date on online apps. And it reminds me of the time in my life before I was ever married, but when I just didn't feel seen at all. And the boys that I would like, they didn't like me because I just didn't even exist on their radar. And it was so to have these
Right.
unrequited crushes, and nobody saw me. They didn't see me. They didn't like me.
Right.
I wasn't even in the running. Well, I could definitely relate with that with one of my clients
Mhm.
who felt like that. She was on the dating apps. She wasn't getting any action. She happened to be, much farther in life, a divorced mom, but I my heart really went out to her. I could see myself in her as well, that experience of sharing that feeling unseen. So I was able to help her get her styled, work with what's in her closet, get some new items, get a photo shoot, some new pictures for her dating profile,
Her hair, her
hair,
makeup.
makeup, the
You did the
whole
whole
thing,
thing.
right?
And how did she feel
She
after?
said, I feel more beautiful today than I have ever felt in my entire life. And that confidence radiated it in pictures. And she put those new pictures out into the world because it's how we show up in person. She started getting a lot more interest. She was seen. She
Right.
showed up. Men were interested in her because she had changed the way she was presenting herself and how she felt about herself. And she ended up meeting a guy who lived several states away. He eventually moved to California, married her. They got married. They're a wonderful couple. He's
Right.
been a father figure to her boys, and it's just
Right.
it's incredible. And I actually recently I got her ready and did another family photo of the whole family
Oh, that's
recently.
it. So you're saying whatever you have experience with from, let's say, a pain or traumatic perspective gives you almost a sixth sense when it comes to clients to be able to just pick up on the same concern or the
Right.
same
And
experience.
creating a safe environment and loving and non-judgmental environment and continuing to ask questions that the pain can come out and we can find a new way of thinking about it and a new way of seeing it as a possible gift that makes you this beautiful, wise, wonderful woman that you were designed to be.
And so not
Mm,
every client
mm.
would come and just say, I feel unseen. I feel
No,
they
they
won't
don't.
share all that until or if they feel safe, they feel seen, they feel heard, then it can come out
Right.
more and
Yeah.
they can, yeah.
Yes, and that I think is really important to remember for styling business owners from a marketing and brand perspective. If we're chatting about who your ideal client is, what's the problem that you're solving, who is looking for the solution, standard questions. The challenge is that when you ask people what are they looking for, clients will say, "Oh, I just don't have anything to wear to go out," or "I find it hard to find bottoms for my body shape." And you're like, "Yeah, okay, well that's the surface
Yeah.
level issue. That's a challenge every day with dressing. But really, we want to get to the problem here
Yes.
because this is easy. Now, this is very hard to market. The deeper level, it's hard to communicate that. And it's hard to let people know that actually maybe that sort of feeling that they're experiencing of loneliness or frustration, those are the feelings that often seem to be the ones that are healed
Yes.
or impacted the
Yes.
most as a result of sessions with someone
That's
like
true.
you.
I have to say that, I have used those themes in my marketing and our marketing. And I know some stylists really like to speak to quick fixes, hits,
The
which I
retail level,
totally get. And that's
essentially.
some clients are going to want to go there. That's where they're going to want to go. But I tend to speak towards the deeper
Right.
issues of like being
Right.
seen and not
Right.
feeling invisible and wanting to be relevant because, these, especially themes that
It's
often
relevant to
come up
you.
in midlife. I also had a
Right.
midlife crisis and went through my whole journey with that. And so many of the women that I work with and that we work with are
Right.
midlife and beyond,
Yeah.
40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And there's a
And
shared,
mirror
they
your own
mirror, yeah, there's a
experiences.
shared experience of feeling
Right.
less seen, of feeling invisible, ageism, feeling less relevant.
Right.
That's real.
And I know we've had children that have been diagnosed with ADHD, and then we have as well as a result of that journey. And then the shame and sort of regret and feeling stretched, being single parents, wanting to try and be the right type of parent. There's so much going on. So,
Yes.
to that
Right.
point, whatever your experiences are individually as a business owner, when we talk about being authentic, really what people are talking about is say who you are, be open
Yeah.
and honest
Be
about your
real, be
experiences,
vulnerable.
because chances are other people, I would want to hear from other people
Right.
that have experienced similar challenges.
Yeah.
But the way that you share your journey and what you've experienced in subtle ways will bring people that you can help. And that's really what we're talking
Right.
about, this cycle of I've healed,
Mhm.
I'm trying to heal, and now I'd like to help use my skills to heal you, and I'm qualified because of this reason and
Yeah.
this experience. And I
Yeah.
think
I
that's an
mean,
That's
I've
amazing
right.
thing.
shared some of my journey with depression. That's been something that I've coped with or had to manage throughout my life. And people would look at me and they wouldn't think, they think she's got everything together, she's totally polished. But I think, and to share that I've been there, I understand.
Right.
And I have actually, I share it even as part of my journey where I use style to help pull me out of it. That's not the only answer, but it is one of the answers. So, yes, I talk about those things. And I think it's important for image consultants and personal stylists to be able to share those more personal stories, our why, our why. And that's what we're talking about
Right.
today, the why.
I think it's important to be authentic, but to not wallow in it, which you have not, but some do.
Mm.
And I think that's not helpful. It's just an is. Whatever you have experienced is an is. And let's carry on.
In younger generations where we practice vulnerability. We actually bring it into our marketing because there's the like, know, and trust factor, and people want
I
to
know.
know that we're real.
I
But what
know.
you're saying is don't wallow, don't
Just don't
focus on it
wallow in
too
it
much. Yeah.
and let it be out there because that is a part of your story that will attract people to you.
Yeah.
Now for me, hopefully what attracts people to me is that they know they're going to be loved. That is what oozes out for me.
What oozes out of you also is a fierce, protective strength. Like, I'm going to be your confidence until you can take the baton from me because you believe it for
Yeah,
yourself. And for many of us, we've never had a
I
person in
know.
our life say, I am going to believe in you until you are able to
Right.
believe in yourself. And that's what I pay for.
Carla does have that oracle quality. Like she has the ability to just sort of speak to those deep parts. And not everybody has that. And that's all right. We all have our different things that
Mhm.
we bring in our ways that we work with clients based on our own experience.
But Carla,
Thank you.
you listen more than you
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And that is arguably one of the most powerful qualities, and yet one of the hardest for most of us to master.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. And I learned that from my husband. It's hard because I love to talk. I would go to a group and I would, be chitty chatting, letting everyone know how cute or something I was. And then I would notice Bob would just listen to people. And I went, and people loved him. And I went, there's something here. And so tried to speak less and listen more. And now I realize, oh my gosh, I don't really have to say much of anything. I just have to ask questions and listen. And the clients find it themselves.
But it's asking the right questions,
Well, that's
which
true.
is a big key.
Yeah.
and holding space for the
Yeah.
answer. That's the reason why we enjoy going to a therapist typically, is because we know that there is no pressure to small talk. They will wait for you until you're
Yeah.
ready. And that ability is what makes it a brilliant image consultant. And that proves the point that this industry is more about the therapeutic healing component than it is about the actual medium of fashion.
So, all of the MH consultants who listen to this podcast, have patience. Yes, you need lots of clients, but have patience and keep going back and encouraging and suggesting.
And Carla, that's such an interesting point because, again, the pressure to run your own business and to generate consistent cash flow can make you think, oh gosh, they've not booked in with me again. They didn't like me, or my pricing is wrong, or the positioning and the promotion of my services is wrong, or my website's rubbish, or I'm not doing SEO, or should I do ads? And you become so bogged down in the marketing sales stuff and forget that the person came to you to begin with really from a psychological healing perspective. So maybe they're not ready yet because of that reason. And for that reason alone, I just ask people not to remove them from the forefront of your mind and think, oh, well, they're not my client. It really still is a personal healing journey that they're
Mhm.
on. Once again, ladies, thank you so much for sharing not only your own personal journeys and private experiences, but the insights on how you've grown your business. And I hope for everyone listening that this has been a reminder that when you're called to this industry because you want to heal and then help others heal, you're in good company.
It truly is a calling and a mission for many of us as personal stylists and image consultants.
Someone years ago asked me, what does it take to be a good personal stylist? And I said, be a recovering something and go through therapy, because I don't care
Mm.
if it's alcohol abuse, anything, but deal with it, go through it, come out the other side. And you will then have what it takes to really be a loving person who can come alongside someone else and help them.
Person, if we could give one sort of parting message to aspiring stylists about the importance of what we're talking about, this vulnerability, the love, the acceptance, is that you have to be true to yourself
Yes.
and to know yourself
Yes.
in order to truly help others do the same.
Yeah.
So do your own work. And the more you do that, you will be able to help others even better.
Beautiful, ladies. Thank you for your
Thank
time
you.
today. As always, if anyone wants to learn more about the Style Course training or any of our combined group accredited programs to build a business, you can head to thestylecore.com or thestylingadvisory.com.au. We'll see you again
Thank
soon.